Pressure is on Otago University proctor Dave Scott to resign tonight after he entered a Dunedin flat without permission and confiscated 3 bongs. The former policeman says he took the bongs to protect the students whilst visiting North Dunedin flats to deliver face-to-face information about initiation events. But students from at least 5 other flats have since come forward saying Mr Scott also entered their properties and took their bongs without permission, and a petition has been launched calling for him to resign. Mr Scott told a press conference this afternoon it was a one-off mistake.
I went to the flat in question. The rear sliding door was wide open. I knocked on the door. I yelled out. There was no reply. I knocked again, and while standing there in plain sight, just inside the room, were 3 cannabis smoking bongs. I made the decision at that time to deal with that situation myself. Wrongly, with the benefit of hindsight, I entered the room and I seized those 3 items and then left, closing the door as I left. My intention in doing that was so that I could deal with the situation at a proctorial level, so that I could deal with the students without involving police. With the benefit of hindsight, that was the wrong decision. It was the decision I made in good faith, and my intent at the time was to give the best possible outcome for the students involved.
Dave Scott says he's been the proctor for the past 2.5 years, and he maintains this was the first time he had entered a student flat, although he had seen bongs on picnic tables when he had wandered into students' backyards. He says at the time he didn't think he was acting unlawfully, and he's not a criminal.
Should the students involved or anyone else want to take this matter to police or to the University of Otago or to any other forum, you know, this has happened. I'm taking responsibility for it. I'm a human. I've made an error of judgment on this occasion. I've apologised to the flat in question this afternoon for what I did. I give an assurance that I will learn from this situation and that won't be repeated.
Mr Scott says he destroyed the bongs and put them in the rubbish. He says it was obvious they'd been used because of their smell, but he chose not to go to the police.
My role is pastoral care, so to act almost as a pseudo-parent. So on occasions where students have got it wrong, to hold them accountable, to have them make the learnings that are there, and for it not to have a far-reaching consequence. So if I was to report this matter to police, potentially police would come and may choose to use their search and surveillance powers, which would mean they'd go right through the flat. So if they did that and they located other items of interest, that may lead to the student facing criminal charges, which may then lead to a conviction. Now, a conviction for a drug-related offence for a student entering the workforce means that you tick the box for, do I have a criminal conviction? Means that student faces difficulty getting jobs. It also means that student may not be able to travel. So the reason I chose to deal with it myself is that it keeps the student out of the court, deals with it at a low end, but there is still a consequence for that student.
Was it explained to those students the consequences of that before they went public?
So I did go back and speak to that flat the next day, and we did. There was some conversation about, you know, cannabis smoking. You know, there's also a health aspect to this, potentially. You know, smoking cannabis and turning up to classes and being in a good learning state to take on board what's being taught to you. So yeah, part of the role is to go back and have a conversation with students. You know, there was a consequence, it was to tidy up the yard, and that was the end of the matter. You know, the one thing I would do differently would be that I wouldn't have entered the flat and taken the bongs.
That's Otago University proctor Dave Scott.